All right, hello everyone. My name is BenScher, and the topic for my research is the increased frequency and potential environmental impacts from oil spills after hurricane landfalls. Now, I became interested in this topic through my time in the Coast Guard. I spent 3 years as a pollution responder and was able to see firsthand how we are able to respond to a hurricane at a moment's notice. So on average, about 2 hurricanes will make landfall every year in the United States. This might not seem like a lot, but the devastation these storms can bring is both large scale and long lasting. A lot of the media coverage focuses on economic loss, infrastructure impacts, and most importantly, the loss of human lives. I wanted to shed some light on oil spills, a topic that doesn't seem to make major headlines after a hurricane landfall, but is just as important. The remediation and logistics of responding to oil spills is complex and ever-changing. If we can properly predict and stage personnel and remediation technologies beforehand, it would save both time and money. In my experience, I saw firsthand how there isn't enough focus and pre-planning disaster, which leaves inefficiencies when responding. The goal of this research is to help develop a method for planners and responders in order to get ahead of the storm and to lessen the negative impacts to vulnerable and protected land. Locating high-risk areas through the use of these methods can improve response times and help spread out necessary resources in the proper areas. So the study area for this research is primarily the southern half of Louisiana and the surrounding waters of the Gulf of Mexico. In total, it's about 19,000 square miles and includes major cities like New Orleans, Houma, and Morgan City. This area of the United States is very active in refining and has many facilities that process and carry oil and other hazardous materials that are prone to spills and releases. I specifically focused on a single hurricane event. Hurricane Ida was a Category 4 hurricane that made landfall on August 29th, 2021. I decided to use a storm for my research due to the severity and location of the landfall. As a Category 4 hurricane, it was strong enough to cause severe damage, but wasn't completely out of hand as a Category 5. It really serves as a great baseline in terms of severity. And as for location, it struck about 90 miles south of New Orleans and tore a path through some of the most vulnerable shorelines and protected lands in Louisiana. Now, just days after landfall, hundreds of oil spills were being reported to the National Response Center. Usually within 24 to 48 hours after landfall, pollution responders from the Coast Guard will be deployed to the affected area and join other federal agencies to begin remediation efforts. So the first data set I want to introduce you to is the oil spill data. This data is crucial into understanding how one hurricane can devastate and lead to hundreds, if not thousands, of unique pollution events. To get a baseline of normal reports and cases of oil spills, I wanted to capture what a non-hurricane period looked like. I decided to select and locate all pollution cases in a 4-day window 1 month before Hurricane Ida's landfall. These dates are July 30th to August 2nd, 2021. So the red circles on this figure shows those pollution cases that occurred in that 4-day window just 1 month prior to Hurricane Ida. In that window, there are only 14 pollution cases. They're pretty sporadic and don't have any real indications of any patterns. You can see there are a few located near New Orleans and a very small cluster at the very southern point of Louisiana. The next set of pollution data I selected were all cases and events that occurred in a 4-day window starting the day after Hurricane Ida's landfall. These dates were August 30th to September 2nd, 2021. And I chose just to wait 1 day after landfall. That way federal agencies were able to arrive on scene and properly report cases to the National Response Center. So the blue circles here are representative of all the pollution cases that were reported in that 4-day window just after landfall. In that 4-day window, there were 125 reported pollution cases. Some examples of these cases include oil refineries, oil rig platforms, and boats that may have been docked at piers. Now, this is a 600% increase from normal non-hurricane days. The true number of pollution cases could be much higher, but with limited manpower, it would be almost impossible to cover all of Louisiana and its shorelines in such a limited amount of time. The next data set I would like to cover is the Environmental Sensitivity Index. This index is a ranking system for shorelines and their sensitivity to oil spills. I use this data to focus on shorelines that were the most vulnerable and most sensitive to oil spills. This figure is zoomed into New Orleans, displaying many different types of ESIs. This ranking system was originally developed by NOAA contractors in 1979 and is currently maintained and updated by NOAA through state and federal agencies. The ranking system is on a 1 to 10 scale. Rank 1 ESIs are the least sensitive to oil spills. These are classified as man-made structures and could be piers, docks, or wharves. Now, rank 9 and 10 ESIs are the most sensitive to spills, and these are classified as tidal flats, fresh and saltwater marshes, swamps, and wetlands. Overall, this index is crucial to planners and responders to determine which locations are the most at risk and where they can deploy resources to prevent or begin remediation efforts. So for this research, I only wanted to focus on ESI ranks 9 and 10 in my Louisiana study area. Louisiana is known for its swamps, marshes, and wetlands, and would be unnecessary to display every ESI for all of my study area. So this figure here is only displaying the most sensitive shorelines, which again are the rank 9 and 10 ESIs. Now, to make response even more complex, every ESI has different remediation techniques, and not all techniques are appropriate to each and every ESI. Some examples of methods to clean up oil spills include shoreline flushing and washing, in situ burning, manual removal, and mechanical removal. In this research and figure, mechanical removal would not be a great option. Bulldozing swamps or tidal flats wouldn't make much sense and may cause even more unnecessary damage. In order to disturb the protected habitats the least, low pressure flushing and washing might be the best option. Now, this could be extremely time consuming, but protecting the vulnerable and protected land of Louisiana should remain a top priority. So the last data set I want to introduce is the wildlife management areas, which is protected by the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. More than 1.6 million acres of wildlife areas, refuges, and conservation areas are protected in Louisiana. These areas are crucial to many plant and animal habitats. Some examples of these species include the black bear, the gopher tortoise, and numerous bird species. Not only does this land house important animals, but it allows the locals a place to hunt, hike, canoe, and go bird watching. So keeping these lands pristine should be a top priority for any disaster response. So this last figure combines all those data sets mentioned before and really focuses on the most important and sensitive land that Hurricane Ida has the potential to impact. The figure itself is displaying what I call lower risk areas. This is a 5-mile buffer from the originating coordinates of the oil spills in that 4-day window after landfall. I would consider this low risk because it's very rare for an oil spill to travel 5 miles. It would have to be a massive amount of product with very strong currents and really strong wind shear. But just to get a glimpse of how much land is potentially impacted, there is a little less than 250,000 acres of protected land and nearly 16,000 miles of shoreline. For my medium risk criteria, I decided to use a 2-mile buffer around the spills. There is still a huge amount of land potentially affected, nearly 200,000 acres of protected land and almost 4,000 miles of shoreline. And for my high risk areas, I decided to reduce this buffer down to just a half a mile. This is land that is very likely to encounter in spills. This should be the focus of all pollution responders and have remediation techniques deployed as soon as possible. In this Hurricane Ida example, there is around 180,000 acres of protected land and almost 500 miles of shoreline. This is still a lot of land to focus on, but having an idea of which ESI shoreline we may encounter can save a massive amount of time and resources. And just to explain in simple terms, the smaller the buffer, the higher the chance for pollution to affect the environment. The bigger the buffer, the less likely it is for pollution to spread and reach this land. So, in conclusion, this data is vital for first responders and emergency planners by providing them with an enhanced tool set to better evaluate and act on at-risk environments. Now, although this study featured a single hurricane event, the system is adaptable to different storm categories and a variety of landfall locations throughout the United States. This information will enable much improved pre-event planning logistics while enabling a more rapid response times. With this information in hand, money can be saved, quality of response can be improved, and at-risk areas can be better served. The repeatability of this process will allow for the building of an ongoing, continually expanding, and richer database. Thank you, and I just wanted to thank everyone for their time, and we'll open it up to any questions.